Hello and welcome to news on NTA International. I'm Nancy Godiangonehu, and on sign language is Precious Ozemena. First, the headlines. President Tinubu departs Bissau after attending ECOWAS 63rd Ordinary Session. US President Biden meets UK Prime Minister Sunak and King Charles ahead of NATO summit scheduled for Tuesday. And about 300 migrants missing at sea near Spain's Canary Islands. We begin with regional development. President Bola Tinubu was invited for the ordinary session of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government in Bissau. But what the Nigerian leader had was an extraordinary outing. State House correspondent Musbau Den Wahab gives an overview of the president's activities in the West African country.
Second official trip abroad, but first on the continent and in the West African sub-region. Arriving here at the Osvaldo Vieira International Airport, Bissau, the president of the largest African country was so received by groups, including members of the diplomatic community, and with pomp and pride. A visit for our regional mission, but first on the mind of the Commander-in-Chief was to see the well-being of the Nigerian troops who have left their homes for more than a year to contribute to the peace and stability under threat here.
We are lucky to be the first military personnel that our Commander-in-Chief is visiting outside the shores of Nigeria.
Your Excellency, this is one of the many peace support operations that Your Excellency has granted approval for Nigeria to participate in. Like I mentioned earlier, we have the highest contingent here of 178, Your Excellency.
We are very proud of you. Proud of your commitment, proud of your loyalty, and we will not abandon you at any given time. Nigeria depends on you. Nigeria will show the world that you are responsible and you are focused.
To the main mission, a new man on the block arrives to take his place in the authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Governments. The host president and outgoing chairman of the authority, Umaru Sissoko Embalo, and ECOWAS Commission President, Omar Aliyu Toure, led the way. Welcome. You are the most expected, was the reading of the atmosphere.
I would like, therefore, to welcome President Tinubu to his first meeting of the ECOWAS Authority.
Attentively, the astute politician followed the deliberations around issues of regional integration. Security, economic and financial matters were prominent. But it was all going to end on his table. President Tinubu, on his first appearance, got to the driver's seat of the block. New seats, new nomenclature, and a new vigor for ECOWAS.
Which decided a warning to exploiters. That our people have suffered enough. We must back to back. We can't sit like toothless bulldog.
As he departs Bissau, President Tinubu's ability is not in doubt amongst his colleagues. The world is only waiting to witness the new heights this new leadership leads to. From Bissau, Musbau Den Wahab, NTA News.
A report just reaching us says President Bola Ahmed Tinubu arrives Abuja from Guinea-Bissau as ECOWAS chair after 63rd ordinary session of Authority of Heads of State and Government. And now we have in the studio a public affairs analyst, Suleiman Hashim, to share his thoughts on the prospects of Nigeria's new leadership of ECOWAS. You're welcome to NTA International Studios, Suleiman Hashim.
Thank you so much. Pleased to have you.
How would you assess the just concluded 63rd ordinary session of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government? Remember, it's the first regional summit President Tinubu is attending as president.
Yes, beautiful. So if you look at it, you would have to maybe take it a little back and then juxtapose it with all of the activities that happened after or between the swearing in and up till today of our new president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, where he had set up clear policies that indicated a zeal or an ambition to not only expand Nigeria's economy, but then expand it to even the frontiers of Africa. And so if you look at then what happened afterwards and how many African countries reacted to some of these policy pronouncements, and you see that there was a convergence over the fact that once Nigeria would be able to grow economically, it is going to have a positive effect on all other African countries. And so if you look at the activities, how the past chairman of the commission came over to meet President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, penultimate his own visit to Bissau to attend the 63rd annual meeting, you would see that definitely it's an appearance of an intention to key into some of these policies that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had started and to quickly hand him over the chairmanship of the ECOWAS so as he would be able to then juxtapose the both and have the effect be on the larger subcontinent and perhaps the continent at large. And that's why you also see that part of the discussion that is on the table and that I'm sure that the president's policies would align with will be the African free trade area, so the continental free trade area. So therefore, when you look at it, I think it's timely. The meeting came timely. The emergence of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as the chairman of the ECOWAS also came timely to come in tandem with his own policies that are, at the long end, tailored towards developing Africa's economy.
Okay, timely indeed. So what does Nigeria actually stand to gain from the election of President Tinubu as the chairman of ECOWAS? Okay,
so yes, so if you look at, for example, our trade between the Lagos, the road that passes through Badagry up to Togo, that highway, that corridor, they had been having a lot of challenges in terms of free flow of trade in the past years. So definitely, for example, I'm sure this is an area, because definitely we all know that the focus of the president has to do with economic progressivism, how there should be more liquid around to be able to run government programs. So definitely programs like that are areas that I know there's going to be a lot of collaboration, in the ECOWAS sub-region to see how to ease that, for example. Then coming to very critical one is even the security. The borders had been maybe not so fortified in the past years, and so we had these complaints of the coming in of small arms and the rest of them. And you could also see that part of the burner of their discussion in Guinea-Bissau was also the area of security and border consolidation. So I see him because internally also these are things that he's already showing zeal to work on. Security, you can't move the economy without the security being intact. So I'm sure as a chairman, again, these are areas that he's going to pursue hard to see that they work, because at the end of the day, Nigeria even stands to gain much more than a lot others from all of those kind of policies, thereby then allowing other countries to also, because the stability of Nigeria means so much to the stability of West Africa and even Africa in general.
Yes, talking about security, you mentioned President Tinubu talked. He said that he was going to reactivate the need to reactivate the ECOWAS standby force. Is imminent.
Well, obviously, so when you talk about the issue of the security, definitely it's going to involve a whole lot of collaboration. I mean, security is much, much more about collaboration than anything. So we could see then the little the joint task force that we put up in the Borno area, then in the fight against Boko Haram between the three of Nigeria, Niger, and Chad. We could see, and even Cameroon, we could see how effective it became. That's even just a few countries coming together. So imagine that we could actually replicate such kind of at the ECOWAS frontier, then definitely you would expect that the synergy will improve, and then that border security that we're sorting for, that will allow for improved economic interaction, to come more improved. So I think it's absolutely doable. We believe in the president's zeal and capacity to get things done that he wishes to want to get done. So we're pretty optimistic with all of this, that at the end of the day, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel, both at the regional level and then at the continental level overall.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Thank you for coming on NTA International. Suleiman Hashim.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, President Biden, as we come back to Nigeria, we now move out of regional matters. President Biden was in London Monday for a whistle-stop 24-hour visit to the United Kingdom before heading for a NATO leaders summit in Lithuania. The first meeting on Biden's agenda after his Sunday night arrival was a sit-down with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at his residence and King Charles III. Charles Alpha reports.
It was the president's first in-person discussion with a fellow world leader on the European trip as the US and its NATO allies look to maintain a unified voice in support of Ukraine as it battles Russia's ongoing invasion. Joe Biden said he was walking into the British Prime Minister's official residence and that the relationship between the UK and the United States is rock solid ahead of the NATO summit in Lithuania.
It's great to have you here, back in Downing Street. I think you've been here a few times before, I know, but your first time as president, so we're very privileged and fortunate to have you here. Thanks for coming. Great for us to carry on our conversations, which we were having just a month or so ago, it feels like, in the White House, where we signed the Atlantic Declaration, the first of its kind economic partnership, which I know we'll be talking about today. How do we strengthen our cooperation and joint economic security to the benefit of our citizens? We want to do everything we can to strengthen Euro-Atlantic security. But great pleasure to have you here.
It's good to be back. We've only been meeting once a month. We've met in San Diego, Belfast, Hiroshima, Washington, here, and couldn't be meeting with a closer friend and a greater ally.
There has been concern in Europe over the Biden administration's decision to send controversial weapons to Ukraine, but also over the future of US government's backing for Ukraine when Joe Biden's first term comes to an end. Shortly after the meeting with Rishi Sunak, President Joe Biden met with King Charles at Windsor Castle for the first time since his coronation, and as part of a busy trip overseas for the United States leader. Focus reports said was on climate change with clean energy strategies. Biden's trip to Europe is highlighted by the two-day NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, beginning on Tuesday. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
The European Commission has adopted the rules for implementing Foreign Subsidies Regulation, FSR. The implementation regulation details procedural aspects of the FSR is contained in the notification forms for concentrations involving foreign financial contributions in public procurement procedures. Hamman Jabani reports.
The Foreign Subsidies Regulations allows the Commission to investigate financial contribution granted by non-EU countries to companies operating in the EU and readdress, if needed, their distortive efforts. It empowers the Commission to adopt procedures rules in relation to the enforcement of the FSR. The FSR was proposed by the Commission in May 2021 and agreed by the European Parliament and the Council in record time in June 2022. It entered into force on 12 January 2023 and will start applying on 12 July 2023. The Foreign Subsidies Regulation sets out an obligation for companies to notify concentration where the acquired companies, one of the merging parties or the joint venture is established in the union and generate an EU turnover of at least 500 million euro, and where the parties of the transaction were granted combined aggregated foreign financial contribution of at least 50 million euro over the past 3 years. Foreign financial contributions in public procurement procedures where the estimated contract value is at least 250 million euro and the bid involves combined aggregated foreign financial contribution of at least 400 million euro per third country over the past 3 years.
This new set of rules will allow the European Union to remain open to trade and investment while ensuring a level playing field for all companies operating in our single market. This regulation applies to all economic activities in the Union involving non-EU subsidies. Let me remind you that it covers concentrations, by which we mean mergers and acquisitions, public procurement procedures, and all other market situations.
The implementing regulation, and in particular the notification forms, details the operating obligation of notifying parties, specifying the information that needs to be included in the notification form for concentration and public procurement procedures. With the FSR in force as of 12 July 2023, by 12 October 2023, companies will have to notify concentrations and participation in public procurement procedures involving foreign financial contribution and meeting the relevant notification thresholds. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
You're on to news on NTA International. We take a break. More reports when we return.
Whether from the winding creeks of Niger Delta, the vastness of northern Savannah, the boardroom of Lagos, the building, bustling capital of Abuja, as busy market of Onitsha. You are all the people. As your president, I shall serve you with prejudice towards none, but compassion and amity towards all.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Entel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit entel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Entel. Live more.
North Korea has accused the United States of flying spy planes over the country. The Ministry of National Defense threatens to shoot them down. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday reports.
A statement from North Korea's Ministry of National Defense, published by KCNA News Agency, says a plane flew several times into the country's airspace, dozens of kilometers over its East Sea, and that there is no guarantee that such a shocking accident as the downing of the U.S. Air Force strategic reconnaissance plane will not happen. The North Korean statement said provocative military action by the U.S. were bringing the Korean Peninsula closer to a nuclear conflict. South Korea's military said North Korea's claim of airspace violation was false.
U.S. air surveillance assets conduct routine reconnaissance flights around the Korean Peninsula, and North Korea's claim of airspace violation is not true. We strongly urge the North to immediately stop creating tension with these false claims.
Last month, an American nuclear-powered cruise missile submarine made a port call at Busan in South Korea. coming amid air and navy drill being conducted by U.S. and South Korean forces involving a U.S. aircraft carrier and heavy bombers. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
Conflict-torn Sudan is on the brink of a full-scale civil war that could destabilize the entire region. The United Nations warned after an airstrike on a residential area killed 22 civilians. The Health Ministry reported 22 dead and a large number of wounded among the civilians from what it described as an airstrike on Khartoum's sister city Omdurman in the district of Dar es Salaam, which means House of Peace. After nearly 3 months of war between Sudan's rival generals, the airstrike is the latest incident to provoke outrage. Around 3,000 people have been killed in the conflict, while survivors have reported a wave of sexual violence and witnesses have spoken of ethnically targeted killings. There has been widespread looting, and the UN warned of possible crimes against humanity in the western region of Darfur. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the airstrike in Omdurman. At least 300 people who were traveling on three migrant boats from Senegal to Spain's Canary Islands have disappeared, Migrant Aid Group Walking Borders says on Monday. Charles Alpha has an update.
2 boats, one carrying about 65 people and the other with between 50 and 60 on board, have been missing for 15 days since they left Senegal. A third boat left Senegal on June 27 with about 200 people aboard. Report says the families of those on board have not heard from them since they left. All 3 boats left Kafountine in the south of Senegal, about 1,700 kilometers from the Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands off the coast of West Africa, have become the main destination for migrants trying to reach Spain. A much smaller number also seek to cross the Mediterranean Sea to the Spanish mainland. Summer is the busiest period for all attempted crossings. The Atlantic migration route, one of the deadliest in the world, is typically used by migrants from sub-Saharan Africa. The United Nations International Organization for Migration said at least 559 people, including 22 children, died in 2022 in attempts to reach the Canary Island. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
Lake Chad Research Institute Maiduguri has released 4 new high-yielding varieties of wheat with a capacity of producing 7 to 8 tons per hectare. This is part of the 17 varieties of cereals released by the Institute in recent times, as disclosed by the Executive Director, Professor Babagana Jugudum Kabir, at the 36th meeting of the National Committee of the Naming, Registration and Release of Crop Varieties, Livestock-Based and Fisheries in Ibadan. Abubakar Musa reports.
The Lake Chad Research Institute is a federal government agricultural agency vested with the mandate of genetic improvement of cereals and other crops to stand the test of climate change, pest and soil type for increased yield. The director, Lake Chad Research Institute Maiduguri, Professor Babagana Jugudum Kabir, had presented the 4 improved wheat varieties comprising 2 bread and 2 durum wheat varieties. According to him, the 4 wheat varieties enriched through on-farm and multiplication trials released to farmers with support by LCRI Extension Services have potentials for 7 to 8 tons per hectare. He says with the official release, Nigerians should expect gradual reduction in importation of the various wheat varieties and lowering of cost of bread as well as other products. The Research Institute Director acknowledged the contributions of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture in supporting the Institute develop appropriate technologies that are aiding in the realization of the potential yield of the varieties.
This is one of the steps that you have seen here, releasing high-yielding, heat-tolerant varieties that can grow in many areas of the country, particularly the savanna zones.
The director recommended the expansion of cultivation areas in wheat production states to fully achieve the effectiveness of efforts of LCRI with efficient extension services. In Maiduguri, Abubakar Musa, NTA News.
Bureau of Public Service Reforms and the All Rights Foundation of Africa have agreed to speed up the implementation of social inclusion and 5% employment slot of persons living with disabilities in civil and public service. Adebola Brooklyn Sunday reports.
Research findings show that there are about 27 million Nigerians living with some forms of disabilities ranging from visual to intellectual and communication impairments. Translating this special people population to a vibrant workforce and ensuring their social inclusion towards nation building is the reason for this memorandum of understanding. Director General of the Bureau, Dasuki Ibrahim Arabi, said the signing into law of the Discrimination Against Persons with Disability Bill in 2018 by the federal government makes it mandatory for all employers of labor to employ citizens living with disabilities.
In the quest to cascade reforms milestone to the federating states, as directed by the federal government of Nigeria, collaboration with states has become a veritable tool to replicate reform milestones to the subnationals.
For the president of the All Rights Foundation, TAF Africa, Jake Pele, the implementation of the Act will enable persons with disabilities have rights to life, education, health, and access to social amenities.
Also, giving visibility to the Act for us to translate these acts into at least three major languages: Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo.
The National Commission for Persons with Disabilities have already designed minimum accessibility standard. I think what most of the MDAs will do is just to collaborate with them, have access to those minimum accessibility standards.
As at 2022, only 9 states in Nigeria have domesticated the Discrimination to Persons Living with Disabilities Act of 2018. Adebola, Brooklyn Sunday, NTA News.
Yes, we all know that President Tinubu is back in the country after a 2-day visit to Guinea-Bissau for the 63rd Ordinary Session of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government. With another feather added to his cap as the new chairman of the sub-regional body, the president arrived at the presidential wing of Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, where his aides, led by the Chief of Staff, Femi Wajabiamila, were waiting to receive him. Since he took the saddle as the president on May the 29th, the summit is his first international engagement on the African continent. Apart from reflecting the level of trust reposed in him by leadership of other member states, the election of President Bola Tinubu also affirms the status of Nigeria as the biggest economy in Africa, with the enormous responsibility of leading the way for economic prosperity of the region. Before departing Guinea-Bissau, President Bola Tinubu had given a commitment to run an inclusive administration geared towards stamping out terrorism and other forms of insecurity in the ECOWAS sub-region. Next is Tuesday's weather prospect. That's it on the news. Thank you for watching. On behalf of Precious Ozemena, who's been on sign language, I'm Nancy. Thanking you. Bye for now.